I am once again begging you to stop sleeping on this focal length. It's almost permanently attached to my camera. It's for some reason not talked about anywhere enough as I think it should be, and it's a 28mm. Let me justify to you why I think 28 is such a great focal length and why I think more people should have one. So here's the thing with 28. Most of the time, people are either talking about 24 or 35 or 50 when they're talking about the wider range of lenses. Any wider than 24, you end up talking about fisheyes and ultra wides. When it comes to wide, most people sort of default to a 35, which I find strange, because to me, a 35 is a little bit too close to a 50 where I find myself wanting to use it like a 50, whereas a 28 feels like my eyes. This is my 28. It's a Pentax M 2.8. You can pick one of these up for under $200. I have an adapter coming in the post so I can put this on my new camera. I'm very excited to shoot some proper video with it. That having been said, here are my justifications for why you should probably get a 28mm lens. First reason that I think 28mm lenses are so great is because it puts you in the scene. And I mean, like, you actually have to move your feet and stand inside of the scene because of how wide it is. In a way, it's very close to the sort of field of view that is my peripheral vision, if that makes any sense. And it's about as wide as you can go before it starts to become a bit unnatural. I find that 24 looks like a wide angle lens, whereas 28 sort of feels quite natural. And this, for me, results in like a very immersive image, a very immersive feeling. Like you know, especially if you print these images big and you look at them, or if you're doing video, if you play them on a big screen, you look at them and it feels like you were there. It's almost as if the photographer has vanished from the equation and you're just looking. It's like the original POV lens. Also, I think most of the time 28 is competing with 35, which is close in focal length, right? But I think the thing with 35 is, because so many people shoot with 35, it's a little bit more of a ubiquitous look, whereas with 28, it has a little bit more edge to it. It's a little bit more exciting and it draws you in a little bit more. It's just that little bit closer that switches it from being an observer on the edges to an active participant in the photo. Here's another great thing about 28. Most of the time, they're quite compact. That's my one. If you compare that to my 35, obviously, this is not a fair comparison. Another really big bonus with 28 is the extra depth of field you get for when you're shooting run and gun. If you're doing street photography, you can zone focus this thing and like basically not touch the focus ring all day. You can blast this thing from like 5 feet away all the way to infinity at f8. And that also plays into it being an immersive lens. You don't have to think about the lens anywhere near as much as you would with a longer focal length, which I think lends itself to being good for immersive style photography. The depth of field aspect is fantastic because with a wide lens, it feels very much like the human eye. And when we're feeling like we're looking through a human eye, it doesn't make sense to have bokeh unless you're me and you're blind. Point is, it's a very naturalistic feeling lens, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons that people tend to shy away from 28 is because it's a little bit harder to make it look like a pro photo. If you think like 85mm with 1.8, sort of like Nat Geo style, like this is not that. This requires a little bit more craftsmanship, I think. Another really great thing about the 28mm focal length is that it allows for so much layering and depth in your composition. A friend of mine, Josh Edgoose, he's at spicy.meatball, is really good at this, and he often shoots with 28 in a way where he'll sort of stage people up perfectly so that everyone has got their own little spot in the scene. I like to shoot like that, but I also like to shoot blurry stuff coming in from the sides of the frame and stuff in the foreground and the background, and creating that layering inspiration that I draw from when I shoot with the 28 is like a lot of old paintings. You know, if you look at old paintings, like a lot of old paintings were done by professional artists back in the day when you could make money from this. But most of them were classically trained, and of course, when they get classically trained, they learned about depth and layering. And so it's a very important part of a lot of that era of work. As well as that, some of my favorite photography lately has been Cristobal Hara's work, and he really loves to put stuff in layers in the foreground and the background, and his compositions are sort of weird in a good way. I think a lot of people, when presented with that scene, would not shoot like that, and that's why I really like them, because you can really see Cristobal Hara's really unique perspective on the thing he was experiencing. And I think that's really what makes the 28 so great. It's that it's the best storytelling lens for when you are part of the story. I always bang on about storytelling and how I think photography is a method of storytelling. When you think about the sort of stories you're going to tell, like, sure, sometimes you are telling a much more cinematic kind of story where you want longer focal lengths, you want it to look a little bit surreal. However, sometimes you're telling a story about yourself. Like, a lot of my photography, and probably a lot of yours, is life documentary stuff. I'm taking photos of my friends. I'm taking photos of my kitchen when the light looks really nice in the morning. Photos that I'm taking for a photo album for me to look back on. And I think the 28 is such a perfect focal length for that sort of photography because of the way it forces you to reveal your perspective on the things that you are experiencing. I think it's a really great lens for storytelling. And some people say, yeah, but you can only shoot wides with it. I disagree. I've shot portraits on it. I've shot wides on it. I've shot super close-up stuff with it. I just think if you're in the market for a 35, maybe take a little leap of faith, go a wee bit wider, and try a 28. I don't think you'll regret it. All that having been said, do you agree? Do you disagree? If you think I'm completely full of it and you think 35 is far superior, by all means, let me know in the comments. I am willing and able to be challenged on this. Thank you for watching. Stay hydrated and create art.